The vote is unanimous, announced Grand Chancellor Kalen, her 6 appendages raised in ceremonial fashion. The primitive species of Sol 3, designation humans, shall be classified as Category 7, useful labor resource. Watch from my observer's podium as the Galactic Assembly erupted in celebratory clicks, whistles, and thunderous applause. 73 species representatives of the most advanced civilizations in the known universe, all agreeing on something. Now that was rarer than a neutron star with pleasant weather. My name is Thirian Vexor, Senior Xenoanthropologist for the Assembly's Cultural Integration Department. For the last 20 solar cycles, I'd been studying humans from our cloaked observation platforms, and right now, I was the only being in this grand chamber who looked utterly horrified. Grand Chancellor, I called out, my voice barely audible over the continued celebration. The amplification system finally picked up my protest. Grand Chancellor Kalen, I request permission to address the Assembly. Kalen's eye stalk swiveled in my direction, pupils contracting with annoyance. The esteemed Assembly has already voted, Observer Vexor. The matter is settled. But my latest reports were considered and dismissed, she interrupted. Your peculiar fondness for this species has been noted and is becoming rather tiresome. Laughter rippled through the chamber, my exoskeleton flushed with embarrassment. With respect, Chancellor, I persisted, categorizing humans as mere labor resources could prove catastrophically unwise. They possess qualities that our standard classification protocols fail to properly account for. Kalen made the universal gesture of dismissal, her appendages waving carelessly. Such as their primitive nuclear weapons, their laughably slow spacecraft, their ridiculous territorial disputes over arbitrary planetary boundaries. More laughter. Commander Drok'tar of the Thirian fleet rose to his impressive 3-meter height. I have reviewed their military capabilities personally. Their most advanced weapon systems are barely past chemical age standards. A single Sarin battlecruiser could neutralize their entire orbital defense network in under 6 minutes. Precisely why they are perfect for Category 7, chimed in Senator Glimmer, his gelatinous form rippling with excitement. Strong enough for manual labor, intelligent enough for basic instruction, yet wholly incapable of resistance. The economic projections are simply magnificent. I stepped away from my podium, a breach of protocol that sent gasps through the chamber. You are making a terrible mistake, I said, my voice steady despite my racing pulse. Humans aren't just another primitive species to be harvested. They are different. Different how? Asked Kalen, her tone dripping with condescension. They are adaptive in ways we have never encountered. They thrive on challenge and adversity. And most concerning of all, they respond to threats with disproportionate creativity and violence. Supreme Sage Ethel, a being composed primarily of sentient gas contained within an environment suit, floated forward. Observer Vexor exaggerates. Our psychological models predict a 93.7% probability of complete submission within 1 standard cycle after first contact. The remaining 6.3% represents isolated resistance, easily managed by standard pacification protocols. My frustration peaked. Your models are flawed. They don't account for human unpredictability. These beings went from first powered flight to landing on their moon in less than 70 years. They have survived multiple near-extinction events through sheer stubborn determination. Enough! Kalen's voice boomed through the chamber. The Assembly has voted. Preparations for first contact and subsequent resource integration will begin immediately. Observer Vexor, you are relieved of your duties and will return to your homeworld pending reassignment. The finality in her voice left no room for further argument. I watched helplessly as the Assembly moved on to discuss implementation details. Which corporations would receive human labor allocations? Which regions of Earth would be harvested first? How the inevitable resistance would be crushed? As I gathered my research materials, Commander Drok'tar approached, his massive form casting a shadow over me. You seem genuinely concerned, Observer, he said, mandibles clicking softly. Perhaps there's something about these humans that doesn't appear in your official reports. I looked up at him, wondering if I'd found an ally or another skeptic. Everything I know is in my reports, Commander. Everything the Assembly has chosen to ignore. Drok'tar's compound eyes glinted. Well, I suppose we will find out soon enough who's right. The first contact fleet launches tomorrow. 10 battlecruisers should be sufficient for a species that hasn't even unified its own planet. 10 battlecruisers? I repeated flatly. That's your show of force. Yeah, more than enough, he replied confidently. Why waste resources? I shook my head. Commander, when humans feel threatened, they don't cower. They fight back with everything they have. And what they don't have, they will invent, borrow, or steal. Drok'tar made the Tehran equivalent of a laugh, a series of staccato clicks. You speak of them as if they are some kind of mythical warriors, not primitives who still burn fossil fuels. Rest assured, observer, this will be the simplest conquest in the Assembly's history. As he walked away, I couldn't help but mutter, that's what I'm afraid of. 3 standard months later, I sat in my modest dwelling on my homeworld, watching news broadcasts with increasing dismay. The invasion of Earth had begun exactly as the Assembly had planned, or so the initial reports claimed. The humans had been given the standard ultimatum: surrender and accept classification as a Category 7 species, or face annihilation. The Assembly's propaganda showed scenes of human leaders appearing appropriately shocked and terrified. What the broadcast didn't show, but what my private channels revealed, was what happened next. My communication terminal chimed, an encrypted message from an old colleague still working at Assembly headquarters. I opened it to find a single video file labeled Classified Initial Human Response. The video showed a human female, apparently a leader of one of their nation-states, standing before a primitive communication device. Her face showed no fear, only cold determination as she delivered her response to the Assembly's ultimatum. To the so-called Galactic Assembly, she began, her voice steady. We, the United Governments of Earth, have received your demands. We have a very simple answer. No. She paused, then continued with remarkable composure. Throughout our history, humanity has faced countless threats to our existence. Plagues, wars, natural disasters. Each time we have not only survived, but emerged stronger. We will not surrender our freedom, our dignity, or our future to become slaves for alien masters. You may have superior technology and weapons we cannot yet match, but if you force this conflict upon us, know this: we will not go quietly. We will not be easily conquered. And if you persist, we will dedicate every resource, every mind, and every human hand to your destruction. We offer instead a different path: peaceful contact, mutual respect, and cooperation. The choice is yours, but choose wisely. Humanity has never responded well to bullies, regardless of which planet they come from. So, the video ended. I sat back, a mixture of pride and dread washing over me. This was exactly what I had warned the Assembly about. Humans didn't respond to threats like other species. They unified and fought back with terrifying resolve. My terminal chimed again. Another message alert: Sarin Battlecruiser, Valaris Thunder, destroyed. Impossible. Our battlecruisers were virtually indestructible by primitive standards. I quickly accessed more classified channels, pulling every scrap of information I could find. The story emerged piece by piece, and it was astonishing. The humans had somehow managed to capture a scout ship that had landed for preliminary surveys. Within days, mere days, they had reverse engineered enough of the technology to modify their own primitive nuclear weapons with our phase-shifting capabilities, rendering our shields useless. Another alert: emergency council session called Human Resistance Exceeding All Projections. I laughed bitterly. Of course it was. I had practically shouted this from the mountaintops, but no one had listened. My home communication system suddenly activated, displaying Commander Drok'tar's face. He looked considerably less confident than when I'd last seen him. Observer Vexor, he greeted me, his mandibles twitching nervously. Your presence is requested at Assembly headquarters immediately. Transport has been arranged. Why? I asked, though I already knew the answer. Your expertise regarding humans is suddenly highly valued, he admitted grudgingly. I see, I replied, unable to keep the satisfaction from my voice. And how is that simplest conquest in history proceeding, Commander? Drok'tar's compound eyes darkened. We have lost 3 battlecruisers and 17 support vessels. The humans are not behaving according to predictive models. They rarely do. The most disturbing development, Drok'tar continued, ignoring my smugness, is that they have somehow managed to access our communication networks. They are broadcasting directly to every member world of the Assembly. That got my attention. What are they saying? Agrewarn. They are offering amnesty to any species that withdraws from the conflict and recognizes Earth's sovereignty. And they are sharing captured technology with less developed worlds, previously denied membership in the Assembly. I couldn't help but laugh. So they are not just fighting back, they are dismantling the entire power structure of galactic politics while they're at it? That's perfectly human. This isn't amusing, observer, Drok'tar hissed. The Assembly is fracturing. Half the member species are considering the humans' offer, rather than honoring their commitments to the war effort. Let me guess, I said. The Grand Council wants me to help them understand humans well enough to defeat them? Essentially, yes, Drok'tar admitted. I stood up, gathering a few personal items. I will come to the Assembly, but not to help them subjugate Earth. I'm going to advocate for immediate peace negotiations, before the humans decide that merely defeating us isn't enough. You can't possibly believe they'd pose a threat to the entire Assembly? I looked at him with pity. Commander, in the 3 months since first contact, humans have reverse-engineered our technology, neutralized our military advantage, and begun dividing our political alliance. What do you think they will be capable of in a year? In 10? As I prepared to leave, I picked up my original research proposal from 20 years ago. The title now seemed prophetic. Humanity, the Sleeping Giants of Sector 8. The Assembly had wanted slaves. Instead, they'd awakened something far more dangerous, a species that didn't know how to surrender, that thrived on challenge, and that was now very, very angry. And I was about to tell them, I told you so, in the most professional manner possible. When I arrived at Assembly headquarters, chaos reigned. Species that had coexisted peacefully for millennia were now shouting accusations at each other. The Grand Assembly Hall, usually a model of cosmic diplomacy, had devolved into something resembling a human sporting event, minus the coordinated chanting and overpriced beverages. Grand Chancellor Kalen spotted me entering and immediately slithered over, her normally immaculate exoskeleton showing signs of stress molting. Observer Vexor, she said, managing to sound both desperate and condescending simultaneously. How kind of you to join us during this temporary setback. Temporary? Pasinakitin, I repeated, glancing at the main display showing at least 20 assembly vessels, either destroyed or captured. That's an interesting interpretation of the situation, Chancellor. We underestimated certain aspects of human adaptability, she admitted stiffly. I fought the urge to say something extremely unprofessional. You ignored every warning I provided for 2 decades, but yes, underestimated works too. Before Kalen could respond, the main communication array activated. Every screen in the chamber displayed the same image. A human male in what appeared to be a hastily modified version of an assembly uniform. But behind him stood a diverse group of humans, each wearing elements of different assembly species clothing and technology, adapted to human physiology. Greetings, assembly representatives, the human began. I am Admiral James Harrington of the newly formed Earth Defense Force. I'm speaking to you from the bridge of the gas Valeris Thunder, though we have renamed it Humanity's Reply. A collective gasp echoed through the chamber. They hadn't just destroyed our battlecruiser, they'd captured and were now operating it. In the 97 days since your unprovoked aggression against Earth, Harrington continued, we have destroyed or captured 27 of your vessels, adapted your technology to our purposes, and established diplomatic relations with 15 formerly subjugated worlds that your assembly designated as mere resource planets. He paused, letting that sink in. Even I was astonished by the speed of human advancement. We now control a significant portion of your network infrastructure, weapons platforms, and trade routes. We could continue this conflict until the complete dissolution of your assembly, his expression hardened, or you can accept our terms. Kalen stepped forward, visibly struggling to maintain composure. And what terms would these be, human? First, immediate recognition of Earth and all human colonies as a sovereign, unified entity, exempt from your classification system. Second, reparations for loss of life and damage inflicted during your invasion attempt. Third, the dismantling of your species classification system and the liberation of all Category 7 worlds. Outrage erupted throughout the chamber. Kalen raised her appendages for silence. These demands are outrageous. You are one primitive world against the combined might of 73 advanced civilizations. Harrington actually smiled. Are we? Check your coalition numbers again, Chancellor. And while you are at it, check your communication security. We have been broadcasting this conversation to every world in your assembly. On cue, the chamber's data displays updated, showing 39 assembly species had already withdrawn from the conflict or were signaling their intention to follow. You have 6 Earth hours to respond, Harrington concluded. Choose wisely. Oh, the transmission ended, leaving stunned silence in its wake. Commander Drok'tar was the first to speak. How have they done this? All eyes turned to me. For the first time in my career, I had the assembly's complete attention. I tried to tell you, I said quietly. Humans don't think like us. Where we see insurmountable obstacles, they see puzzles to solve. Where we respect limitations, they defy them out of sheer stubbornness. I walked to the center of the chamber, addressing all present. You wanted to enslave a species that turned the splitting of atoms into both devastating weapons and life-giving energy. A species that explored their entire world when they could barely make fire. A species that looked at the vacuum of space and decided, yes, we should go there. Kalen's eye stalks drooped in defeat. What do you recommend, Observer Vexor? Accept their terms, I said without hesitation, and be grateful they are offering terms at all. And then, prepare yourselves for a very different galaxy. As the assembly leaders argued among themselves, my private communicator vibrated. The message displayed was from an unknown source, but I immediately knew its origin. Thanks for trying to warn them, Observer Vexor. We found your reports in the assembly database. Impressive insight for someone who's never actually met a human. Would you like to? We could use someone who understands both sides. Admiral Harrington. I smiled to myself as the assembly continued its frantic debate. They had wanted to enslave humanity. Now they would be lucky if humanity didn't decide to return the favor. The galaxy was about to change, and I, for one, was looking forward to it. I never imagined I would be aboard a human vessel. Yet here I stood, on the bridge of the Humanity's Reply, formerly the pride of the Terran fleet. The transformation was remarkable. In mere weeks, the humans had not only mastered the ship's systems, but improved upon them in ways that would have earned accolades at any assembly engineering symposium. Observer Vexor, welcome aboard, Admiral Harrington greeted me, extending a hand in their customary gesture of peaceful contact. I extended my primary appendage in response, attempting to mimic the handshake as they called it. Thank you for the invitation, Admiral. Though I'm no longer officially an observer. The assembly stripped me of my title shortly after I recommended accepting your terms. Harrington grinned, an expression I was learning indicated amusement rather than aggression. Their loss, our gain. We have allocated quarters for you in what used to be the executive officer's cabin. I hope you will find it comfortable. A younger human female approached, carrying what appeared to be modified assembly communication technology. Admiral, we have intercepted another distress call from the Proxian sector. 3 more assembly worlds voting to join the Earth Coalition. Excellent work, Lieutenant Kazuki, Harrington replied. Add them to the briefing for tomorrow's diplomatic summit. I couldn't help but marvel at the speed with which humans formed alliances. In just 6 weeks since the assembly had reluctantly accepted their terms, humanity had established diplomatic relations with 47 worlds. Many were former Category 7 planets seeking protection from assembly reprisals, but an increasing number were full assembly members, hedging their bets on the new power in the galaxy. You seem impressed, Harrington observed, noticing my expression. Baffled might be more accurate, I admitted. The assembly took centuries to build its coalition. You have created a rival power block in less than 2 standard months. Harrington shrugged, another uniquely human gesture. Turns out, when you treat other species as equals instead of resources, they're pretty eager to work with you. Who knew? The sarcasm wasn't lost on me. Most assembly species evolved in environments where rigid hierarchy enhanced survival. Cooperation among equals is not our natural state. Well, adaptation is humanity's natural state, Harrington replied. Speaking of which, there's something I'd like to show you. Domasonomon. He led me through corridors that had been reconfigured to accommodate human proportions, while still allowing access for various alien physiologies. Crew members of at least 6 different species worked alongside humans, all wearing variants of the New Earth Coalition uniform. We entered what had once been the Battlecruiser's auxiliary command center. It had been transformed into something the humans called mission control, a hub of screens, holographic displays, and bustling activity. This is Dr. Layla Patel, head of our reverse engineering division. Harrington introduced me to a human female with dark skin and intelligent eyes. Observer Vexor, your xenoanthropology papers were instrumental in helping us understand assembly psychology, she said enthusiastically, particularly your work on comparative cognitive frameworks across species with different evolutionary paths. You have read my academic publications? I asked, astonished. Of course! We downloaded the entire assembly knowledge database during the first week of the conflict. Your insights helped us formulate our diplomatic approach. Before I could process this disturbing revelation about their infiltration of our most secure systems, Dr. Patel gestured toward the main display. We wanted to show you Project Phoenix, she said proudly. The screen showed what appeared to be a massive construction project in Earth's orbit. Hundreds of vessels, some human-designed, some clearly repurposed assembly ships, moved in coordinated patterns around a central framework that spanned several kilometers. What am I looking at? I asked. The first Earth Defense Fleet carrier, Harrington explained. We have combined assembly phase drive technology with our own propulsion theories to create something new. Dr. Patel, show him the drive test. Dr. Patel tapped several commands into her console. The display shifted to show a smaller vessel in deep space. Without warning, the ship simply vanished, reappearing instantly at a location the display indicated was several light years away. That's impossible, I whispered. The theoretical limitations of phase drive technology limit jumps to a maximum of 0.7 light years without a cooling cycle. Only if you're using conventional phase matrices, Dr. Patel explained, her excitement evident. We discovered that by inverting the quantum field and introducing a modified Higgs boson cascade, we could effectively bypass the thermal restrictions. You solved the Yarvik thermal paradox? Assembly scientists have been working on that problem for 900 years. Harrington smiled. Dr. Patel solved it in 3 days, once we understood the basic principles. The solution was fairly obvious. Obvious, I repeated faintly. The real breakthrough came when we integrated our understanding of quantum entanglement, Dr. Patel continued. By linking multiple phase drives in a synchronized array, we can now transport vessels of any size across distances limited only by our targeting capabilities. My exoskeleton must have paled visibly because Harrington placed a reassuring hand on my shoulder. We are not planning galactic conquest, Observer Vexor. But after what happened, humanity unanimously agreed. Never again will we be vulnerable. The Phoenix carrier isn't a weapon of war, it's insurance against extinction. The assembly won't see it that way, I cautioned. They will view this as an existential threat. Perhaps, Harrington acknowledged. But that brings us to why you are here. We need someone who understands both humanity and the assembly. Someone who can help build bridges rather than weapons. You want me as a diplomat? I asked incredulously. We want you as a teacher, Dr. Patel corrected, to help us understand the species we now share this galaxy with, and to help them understand us. Before I could respond, alarms blared throughout the ship. Lieutenant Kazuki's voice came over the communication system. Admiral, to the bridge immediately. Multiple assembly battlecruisers detected on approach vector. The bridge was a flurry of controlled activity when we arrived. Tactical displays showed 5 assembly battlecruisers in attack formation approaching Earth's defensive perimeter. Status report. Harrington demanded, instantly switching from diplomatic mode to military commander. 5 Saren-class battlecruisers, heavily armed. They are not responding to hails, reported a communications officer. Coalition fleet status? So defense platforms activated. The prototype squadron is moving to intercept. ETA 3 minutes, I stepped forward. Admiral, those are purification fleet vessels. They are designed for planetary bombardment. Harrington's expression darkened. They wouldn't dare. The Assembly Council wouldn't. I agree, but that's not an official assembly formation. Look at their identification markers. They are running dark. This is a rogue action. By whom? If I had to guess, Commander Drok'tar, he lost significant standing when his predictions about human military capabilities proved catastrophically wrong. This would be his attempt to restore honor. Harrington processed this information with remarkable speed. Lieutenant Kazuki opened a direct channel to those vessels. Transmit on all frequencies, including the private Sarin military bands. The private bands are encrypted, I pointed out. Harrington gave me a look that somehow conveyed both amusement and ferocity. Not to us, they aren't. The main view screen activated, showing the bridge of the lead battlecruiser. Commander Drok'tar's massive form dominated the center. Admiral Drok'tar, Harrington greeted calmly. You are violating the terms of the peace agreement. Turn your vessels around immediately. Drok'tar's mandibles clicked in what I recognized as contemptuous laughter. Peace agreement? You dictated terms to the Assembly through coercion and trickery. Your technological advances were an unacceptable anomaly that must be corrected. This isn't an official Assembly action, is it? Harrington pressed. You are acting without authorization. Drok'tar's compound eyes flashed angrily. I act to preserve galactic order. When the Assembly learns I have eliminated the human threat, they will thank me. Treaties with inferior species aren't worth the molecules they are recorded on. Drok'tar snarled. A Category 7 species exists to serve, not to dictate terms. I stepped into view of the transmission. Commander Drok'tar, as a fellow Assembly citizen, I urge you to reconsider this action. You cannot possibly understand the consequences. Drok'tar's eyes narrowed when he saw me. Observer Vexor, you have become a traitor to your own kind, consorting with primitives against the interests of the Assembly. The Assembly's interests aren't served by provoking a species that has already demonstrated technological superiority, I argued. Technological trickery, Drok'tar dismissed. We have analyzed their capabilities extensively. Their advantage was merely the element of surprise, which they no longer possess. Our shields have been recalibrated. Their weapons will no longer be effective. Harrington nodded to his tactical officer, who transmitted something to Drok'tar's vessel. We have just sent you sensor readings of our defensive capabilities. Please review them before you make a terrible mistake. Drok'tar glanced at something off-screen, his compound eyes widening momentarily before he mastered his expression. Sensor ghosts and falsified readings. You cannot deceive me. Final warning, Admiral Harrington said quietly. Withdraw your vessels or we will be forced to demonstrate that those readings are entirely accurate. Drok'tar made the Terran gesture of battle commitment, touching his primary weapon's appendage to his honor gland. We will cleanse this system of the human infection. All vessels advance and prepare bombardment pattern Sigma 9. And the transmission cut off. Harrington looked at his tactical display, then at me. Observer Vexor, I gave him every opportunity to withdraw. Please remember that. What are you going to do? I asked, suddenly fearful. Harrington's expression was grim. Lieutenant Commander Ortiz, activate Defense Protocol Echo 7. Minimal force parameters. We want to disable, not destroy. Admiral, Echo 7 authorized. Minimal force parameters confirmed. What happened next still haunts my dreams. From Earth's orbit, 5 small objects, barely visible on the tactical display, launched toward the advancing battlecruisers. They moved at speeds I wouldn't have believed possible, crossing the vast distance in seconds. On the main screen, we watched as the objects approached Drok'tar's vessels. There were no explosions, no visible weapons fire. The battlecruisers simply stopped. Their engines died, their weapons systems went dark, and they began drifting helplessly in space. What did you do? I whispered. Targeted electromagnetic pulse combined with a localized phase space disruption, Dr. Patel explained, checking readings on her tablet. We temporarily collapsed the quantum field supporting their drive systems and introduced a cascading failure in their power distribution networks. That shouldn't be possible, I stammered. Yet here we are, Harrington said quietly. Re-establish communication with Commander Drok'tar's vessel. When the screen activated again, the Sarin battlecruiser's bridge was illuminated only by emergency lighting. Drok'tar looked shell-shocked, his exoskeleton pale with fear. Commander Drok'tar, Harrington began, his voice firm but not gloating. Your vessels have been disabled, not destroyed. We will provide emergency power to maintain life support while you await retrieval by Assembly authorities. Your weapons, engines, and communications beyond this channel are inoperative. Drok'tar's mandibles trembled. How? Our shields were at maximum power. Our sensors detected no weapon launches. That's because, by your understanding, they weren't weapons, Harrington explained. Just as you once considered us not a threat. The Terran Admiral seemed to physically shrink. What do you want from us? A mere nothing. Rescue vessels are already on their way from Earth. You and your crews will be detained until Assembly representatives arrive to take custody of you for violating the peace treaty. And then, Harrington's expression softened slightly, and then we continue building a new relationship between our peoples, one based on mutual respect rather than dominance and subjugation. The Assembly will never accept equality with a former Category 7 species, Drok'tar insisted, though his voice lacked conviction. I stepped forward. They already have, Commander. While you were planning this ill-conceived attack, 17 more Assembly worlds have signed independent treaties with the Earth Coalition. The old order is changing, whether you accept it or not. As the transmission ended, Harrington turned to me. Will there be others like him, unwilling to accept the new reality? Severnuana, I considered this carefully. Undoubtedly, change is difficult for most Assembly species. Our civilizations value stability above all else. It's why we stagnated technologically for millennia while maintaining the illusion of superiority. Then we have work to do, Harrington said. Dr. Patel, accelerate the cultural exchange program. Observer Vexor, I'd like you to prepare a comprehensive briefing for our diplomatic corps on the psychological barriers we will face with each Assembly species. Admiral, I said hesitantly, may I ask something that's been troubling me? Of course. You could have destroyed those vessels easily. You could likely destroy the entire Assembly fleet if you wanted to. Why show such restraint? Harrington looked thoughtful. Throughout human history, we have learned one consistent lesson. True power isn't about domination, it's about having choices. The ability to destroy isn't impressive. Any sufficiently advanced civilization can do that. But choosing not to destroy, when you have every reason and capability to do so, that's what makes a civilization truly advanced. He gestured around the bridge where humans worked alongside members of other species. We don't want to rule the galaxy, Observer Vexor. We just want our place in it, as equals, not servants or masters. As I looked at the disabled battlecruisers on the view screen, I understood something profound about humans that my decades of research had never fully captured. That their greatest strength wasn't their adaptability or their technological ingenuity, though those were formidable. It was their capacity to imagine a different kind of future than the one history seemed to dictate. The Assembly had voted unanimously to enslave humanity. Now those same species were pleading for mercy, for understanding, for inclusion in humanity's vision of the future. And remarkably, humans were granting it. One standard year later, I stood beside Admiral Harrington in the newly constructed Galactic Cooperation Council chambers on neutral territory, a space station orbiting a previously unclaimed world. Representatives from 112 species filled the chamber, most former Assembly members, along with 27 species previously classified as resources and denied representation. Distinguished representatives, Harrington began. 1 year ago, we faced each other across a battlefield. Today, we meet as partners in creating a more just galactic community. The chamber erupted in approving sounds from 100 different biological communication systems. I watched with pride as the first resolutions of the new council were proposed. The permanent abolition of the species classification system, the establishment of technological and cultural exchange programs, and the creation of mutual defense protocols. During a brief recess, Grand Chancellor Kalin approached us, her once arrogant demeanor replaced by cautious respect. Observer Vexor, she greeted me, using my old title as a courtesy. Your predictions about humanity proved remarkably accurate. Thank you, Chancellor, I replied. Though I failed to anticipate just how quickly they would transform our understanding of galactic politics. Kalin turned to Harrington. Admiral, while many in the former Assembly still struggle with the rapid changes of the past year, I must acknowledge that humanity has shown unexpected wisdom and victory. Harrington smiled. Not wisdom, Chancellor, just historical perspective. Humans have made enough mistakes on our own world to recognize that dominance creates only temporary stability. True security comes from cooperation. An unusual philosophy for a species that possesses such overwhelming military advantage, Kalin observed. Perhaps that's precisely why we hold it, Harrington replied. Power reveals character, Chancellor. It doesn't create it. As they continued their diplomatic exchange, I reflected on how profoundly the galaxy had changed in a single year. The rigid hierarchy that had defined interspecies relations for millennia had given way to something new, something imperfect and occasionally chaotic, but vibrant with possibilities. The Assembly had sought to enslave a species they considered primitive, only to discover they had instead encountered the greatest catalyst for change the galaxy had ever known. And I, a once obscure xenoanthropologist who had spent decades trying to warn my people about humans, now found myself in the remarkable position of helping build bridges between our civilizations. As the council session resumed, Admiral Harrington took his seat beside representatives of former enemies, now partners in governance. He caught my eye and gave a small nod of acknowledgement. I nodded back, thinking of the human expression he had taught me, one that seemed to perfectly capture both humanity's response to attempted enslavement and their approach to rebuilding the galactic order. The best revenge isn't just surviving, it's thriving in a way your enemies never imagined possible. No, sir. The Assembly had voted for dominance and received education instead. They had sought slaves and found teachers. They had expected submission and discovered partnership. And the galaxy would never be the same again.